Well, it's Easter here at Beach Baby Bob's house, and we're in the kitchen, and it's time to make a dessert for the big meal, which is coming up tomorrow, actually. This is going to be a southern sweet potato cake. And the first step in making this cake is to get sweet potatoes and cook them. So you peel them. I'm using about 3. You peel them, cut them into pieces so they don't take so long to boil and get soft. Put them in a pot of water and cook them. And so I've done that, and I've got them right here, and they're already cooked. I just have to mash them up. That's step 1. Remember, it's a special cake. We call it Southern Sweet Potato, and it's a delicious cake for any occasion, especially holidays. It's made with sweet potatoes, cinnamon, ginger, and it's going to be topped with a honey cinnamon buttercream icing for a perfect combination. The crowd at our party will love it. It's a double layer cake, so I'm using 2 cake pans, and I'm going to butter them, and then I'm going to put a piece of parchment wrap or wax paper in the bottom and butter that too. So I'm using 2 like that. Twyla is here, and she's already licking her lips when I mentioned the buttercream icing. I drained the water out of the sweet potatoes, but instead of dumping it down the drain, I decided to save it, because when you put water with potatoes or carrots or any vegetable, sweet potatoes, and you boil them, the nutrients in the vegetable go into the water, and then you dump it down the drain. So why not save it for soup or something? So I'm not sure what I'm going to make later on today for dinner, but I'm going to use that juice somewhere. Easter is a very special time for us, since we're very heavenly people here at Bob's house. And my wife Sue decided to make some whole wheat pancakes for breakfast. So there's a whole wheat pancake that she's whipped up, and I'm going to taste it to see if she did a good job. This southern sweet potato cake is not Beach Baby Bob's recipe. I was going to make my famous carrot cake for this very special holiday, but I didn't have any carrots. I think the Easter Bunny ate them all. So the stores are closed today, Good Friday, so I thought, well, I do have sweet potatoes on hand, since they're, according to the Mayo Clinic, one of the top healthiest foods on the planet. And they're low glycemic, so they're good for you in many, many ways. Anyway, so I decided to make a sweet potato cake, and I looked up this recipe from shewearsmypants.com. And according to the people who posted it, it's just to die for. So we're going to find out. And that's what it's supposed to look like. We'll see. And the cake doesn't take too long. It takes about 30 minutes to prepare the cake and about 45 minutes to cook it in the oven at around 350 degrees. And you can see from the ingredients, the flour and the baking soda, baking powder, salt, and cinnamon and ginger, sugar, eggs, vanilla, sweet potatoes, some buttermilk, or maybe yogurt if you don't have buttermilk, or maybe some kefir if you want to be really, really healthy. All typical ingredients. But because I'm not typical, I might add some extra stuff. I'm not sure, like maybe a raisin or something. I'm not sure. I'll keep you posted, but those are the ingredients. You can find this on the internet on that website, She Wears My Pants. So if you've been following my YouTube channel, Beach Baby Bob, and you know I'm a storyteller. I tell children's stories because I used to be a teacher librarian for most of my life. And I consider myself quite an expert on storying and how powerful it is for your brain. Anyway, but if you go onto my Beach Baby Bob YouTube channel and you're looking for a recipe, I got my favorite recipes on there, and you might want to take note of them because there's some really wonderful stuff. In fact, I've made many cakes in my lifetime, and I know that as with this southern sweet potato cake, you take the dry ingredients and you put them in a bowl and you mix them up, and then you set that aside, and then you take the wet ingredients and you put them in your mix master bowl, and you take the sugar and the butter and you beat that together, and then you take the beaten eggs, the ones you've already beaten, in another bowl. You add the eggs a little bit at a time to your whizzing mix master sugar butter stuff, and you add that and mix it really, really well. Get it really, really fluffy and buttery. And then you, when you're ready to take the dry ingredients, you put them in a little bit at a time, like maybe in 3 parts. You put them in, and alternate with the buttermilk. And that's typical for making cakes. That's how you do it. So you add the flour mixture to the butter, sugar, egg mixture, a little bit at a time with the buttermilk in between. And then when you're all done, you throw them in the pans and cook them and wait till they're cool. And then you ice them and decorate them. That's how you do most cakes. So instead of showing you all that, and I know if you're watching this and you're a cake maker, you know it anyway. But if there's anything unusual that I'm going to do, I'll include the video clip of it. So later. Well, while I'm trying to make this cake, my wife's feeding me this blueberry whole wheat pancakes. Yum. Let me show you. Yeah, so they're quite delicious, and they're perfect because she's a perfect cook. And you notice that you don't see the blueberries, but she got them on the bottom. Yum. Oh my God. Gotta stop the camera and eat. This is my bowl for the dry ingredients. So it's really quite easy. 2½ cups of unbleached all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of ginger, and a teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So I added the salt to the dry ingredients, and remember, it called for about 1/2 teaspoon. So if you're just taking the salt and you're just taking it out of the salt shaker and giving it a few shakes, you really probably would never get 1/2 teaspoon. And you know, salt has a lot to do with the flavor in whatever you're cooking, and especially cakes. So if it calls for unsalted butter, you might want to use unsalted butter. If you put the right amount of salt in your dry ingredients, then you want to stick with unsalted butter in your wet ingredients. But if you don't have any unsalted butter, then cut the amount of salt in your dry ingredients in half. And keep in mind too that unsalted butter only has a refrigerator life of about a month compared to the salted butter that'll last for 2 months in your fridge, because salt is a preservative. And I don't know, I just think that if you put salted butter in your cake, will the world come to an end? Well, according to one lady, yes. So do whatever you want to do. What am I going to use? I don't know yet. Oh, and I forgot one thing. The oil that you use, or the fat that you use in your cooking, no matter what you're making, it doesn't have to be a dessert. Olive oil is the best one. Coconut oil is okay too, but not quite as good as olive oil. And butter will make everybody rave about your cooking. So think about that, because butter is pretty much 80% fat from cow's milk. I'm using my Braun Mix Master to do the rest of the job here. I'm going to start with the wet ingredients. So I'm going to put the sugar in there and the butter. It calls for 16 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So I'm going to put the sugar with the butter, and then I'm going to gradually add my 3 eggs one at a time, and then beat the hell out of it and make it as fluffy as I can get it. A little bit of vanilla for flavoring, and then I'll do the next step with the dry ingredients. But I got this from my mother-in-law Ruth Dowd when she died. She was a great cook. She taught many, many, many famous chefs in her life. One, Judy Dowd, who lives in New Brunswick. She's a great cook too. So I'm going to use her mix master here. The butter and the sugar, having a great time in the bowl. Next, the eggs, one at a time. Then the vanilla. The eggs have just dove in. They're having a great time swimming around with the sugar and the butter. The cake's almost done. I'm about to take it out of the oven and cool it on some racks for 45 minutes or so. I don't want it to be warm when I put the buttered icing on it. And I'm going to use icing sugar. I'm going to use butter, some cinnamon, and maybe a little vanilla flavoring, and a little bit of honey for the whipped butter topping. So the first thing I do is I put some butter in the beater here, and I whip it up. And then I gradually add in the icing sugar and the honey, and I'm done. And it's all in the flair or the technique. So let's see what happens, but there's a peek inside my oven. Well, the whipped icing is finished. The cakes are out of the oven, cooling. I just have to assemble it, but I have to wait till things cool down. Ta-da! Presenting a Southern cinnamon sweet potato cake, or the sweet potato Southern cinnamon cake. Ta-da! Da-da-da-da-da-da! We won't know how it tastes though until tomorrow. We'll get back to you on that one. Have a great Easter.